What a weekend we saw in week 3 of the college football season yesterday, Saturday. That's right. It was an entertaining weekend of college football. We had some real tight games. We had some streaks that were broken, year-long streaks that had been broken yesterday. We just saw a lot of stuff that somehow we need to wrap our head around here. 25% through the season. That's right, folks. The regular season is 25% down. We're already 3 games into this thing. Other than Notre Dame, they're wishing they were back in game 1. That's right. They are 0-2. This is an absolute tremendous season that we got building here in college football. I don't know who is good, who is bad yet. It is just a real question mark across the board for most teams. So let's break this down in our 5 thoughts on week 3 in college football. So gather around, get a drink, let's get into this thing. Let's break it down in the 5 thoughts here on week 3 in college football. Thought 1 on week 3 in college football. Let's start in Atlanta, Georgia. That's right, folks, where we saw the 9-game losing streak for the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech beat Clemson yesterday 24-21 on a 55-yard game-ending field goal for Georgia Tech. And boy, it was quite the scene down there in Atlanta. This team was led by Haynes King. Remember, going into the season, I had Clemson ranked the number 1 team in the country. This team is now 1-2 after 3 weeks. Not a great win even over Troy last week. So it is kind of a depressing situation down there for Dabo Swinney and the boys. And Haynes King just put the pressure on them all day. 211 yards passing, 103 yards rushing. He had a TD rushing the ball. This was just a really good Georgia Tech team yesterday. They're very challenging to tackle Haynes King and to keep this, this offense off the field. It's just tough. And Clemson found that out yesterday. Cade Klubnik was 15 of 26, 207 yards, 1 TD, 1 touchdown. Wesco was his big receiver, but he had 126 yards catching. This is just not a great start for the Clemson Tigers. If I'm not mistaken, I thought, let me think back. Is it somewhere around there? I think we could find it. Isn't Dabo the one that said that this Clemson team could go 16-0? I don't know if he was joking, but let me tell you, he's a long way from 16-0, and he's a long way from the number 1 seed in the country that, yes, I had him ranked at the beginning of the year. What a dumb decision. Knocked myself on the head. This is not a very good football team so far, but let's not take away from what Georgia Tech did. Remember, going into the season, I told you I thought Georgia Tech was going to win this game from the beginning, and yes, they did. I took the 3.5 points, and I was a winner on that. So let's talk about where Clemson goes from here. Well, they better pick it up because they've got a real challenge in front of them, starting out at 1-2 and trying to make a playoff with the Miami Hurricanes looking the way that they did yesterday in a multi-weather delay game and just beating down USF, a team that beat the Florida Gators just last week. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where this ACC goes from here. Great win for Georgia Tech. They beat Clemson 24-20 on a last-second 55-yard hammer field goal that just brought the whole stadium onto the field, and they aren't getting fined no $500,000 from the SEC because the ACC is happy that they got teams rushing the field and they got big games going on. Thought 2 on week 3 in college football. Let's talk about the aforementioned Florida Gator LSU football game yesterday in Death Valley. This thing ended up being a 20-10 LSU victory. And let me tell you, it's a victory on the field and on the scoreboard and in the record book, but that was not a good football game by either team. But most especially, in my opinion, by LSU, a team who's supposed to be a top 5 team. But this did not look like a top 5 team, in my opinion, after watching this football game. Think about this, folks. DJ Lagway threw 5. That's right, count them, 5 interceptions in this game. Just an absolute horrific performance out of DJ Lagway in the offense of the Florida Gators. But yet, in this game, it never felt like LSU was pulling away in this football game. It ended up 20-10, and late in the game, Florida was driving to make this a 20-17 or a 20-13 game and cut this thing down into a one-score game and maybe get the ball back until DJ Lagway throws his fifth INT of the game. But LSU did not move the ball on offense at all. They had one solid touchdown drive. They got an interception late in the second quarter that they moved the ball. What'd they move the ball? Like, I don't know, 4 yards or 14 yards. That's what it was. 6 plays, 14 yards, and they pulled a field goal out of that right before the half. I think that was the one. But anyways, then in the second half, the only score they had, the touchdown was a pick six that they took off of DJ Lagway to the house. Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, it just didn't look great. And the one pass he had in the second half where he threw his interception, I don't understand what the hell he was doing in that position. He rolls to the right. He's looking around. He's got all kinds of time. And he throws back to the middle of the field. This guy is like a senior. He's like supposed to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. He is making mistakes like that in a game against Florida. They never really could pull away from Florida. I don't think Florida is that great right now. I was really high on Florida going into the year, higher than I was on LSU, and clearly I was wrong on that. We'll see. Florida goes to the aforementioned Miami next week. They're probably going to get their doors blown off by the Hurricanes, which will not make this win for LSU look any better. And remember, LSU's win against Clemson kind of looks a little junky now too. So I don't really know if LSU is as good as the number 5 team in the country that I had them, or the AP has them at number 3. I'm really questioning the consistency of this offense. They just don't seem to be able to move the ball very well. And it goes by they had a possession, 6 plays, 15 yards a punt. They had a possession of 4 yards and a punt, 2 yards and a punt. This is just not really a great LSU offense that we thought we were going to see with Garrett Nussmeier and this wide receiving core. All right, Billy Napier, I don't think this loss was on him. I think this was a DJ Lagway just out there throwing pick after pick after pick, and quite frankly, they kind of stayed in this game longer than they should have. This should have really been a 5-interception game. This should have been like a 42-10 win for LSU. It ends up being 20-10, and Florida does have the ball late and can cut this to a one-score game. I'm not really impressed with either one of these teams. I mean, LSU was 4 of 14 on third down. They had a total of 332 yards of offense. This just wasn't a great football game, but it surely was entertaining to watch, and we'll go from there. So LSU does pull out a win against Florida, 20-10. You know, Florida's got a really tough, they go to Miami. They got Texas coming in. We'll talk about that little debacle in a little bit. They got Texas A&M, who looked really good yesterday. We'll talk about that in a bit. So again, LSU 20, Florida 10, and really an unaspiring game, especially for the LSU Tigers, who are supposed to be a top 5 team in the country. Thought 3 on week 3 in college football. Let's talk about what we saw in Knoxville, Tennessee yesterday. And that's right, what we saw was a 44-41 barn burner game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Tennessee Volunteers. And if you remember correctly, folks, I had this game pegged at under 49.5, and boy, was I wrong on that. This game really put up the points for both teams. What do we have? 85 points scored in this thing. It really started out great for Tennessee. First 3 drives, bang, 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 touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Georgia put a touchdown in during those drives. It was a 21-7 game. It went to halftime at 21-17. Georgia comes out in the second half. They end up taking the lead, 24-21. It goes back and forth. At one point in this game, Tennessee was up 38-30 late in the fourth quarter. Georgia rolls down, punches in a touchdown, goes for the 2-point conversion, and ties this game up at 38 apiece. Exciting news for Tennessee. They still got the ball. They move the ball into position to kick a field goal to win this game. And of course, before they get the snap off, they get a false start, moves them back 5 yards, and bam, what do we get on the next play? We get a missed field goal, and we go into overtime, folks. That's right. Tennessee gets the ball. They can only muster a field goal in this point, and Georgia comes in, and with a dominant run, they come down, get the ball down to 3, and then just plow the ball in, literally by the tip of the ball to win the game, 44-41. I really felt like Tennessee had multiple opportunities to win this game. They just couldn't put it away. Being up 8 late in the fourth, and they just couldn't put it away at all. It was just disappointing as a Tennessee fan. I'm sure if you're a Tennessee fan that this was a disappointing loss, knowing that you just played Georgia, probably the best you've played them in 10 years, and you couldn't win the game. So I'm still not 100% sure that Georgia's a great football team, but they're winning, and that's all that matters in college football is winning, winning, winning. So how you win, when you win is all the important stuff. So Georgia wins this game 44-41. I really felt like Tennessee outplayed them for a good portion of the game. But it is what it is. Georgia rolls on. They're going to probably move back up into my top 5 based on some other things that we saw going in. We'll see about that in the Baker's Dozen poll coming out on Tuesday. But Georgia has a good game overall. You know, they had that fumble in the fourth quarter that really cost them extra 3 points, made them have to go for that 2-point conversion late in the game, which luckily they got. Another big win for Kirby Smart on the road in the SEC, which he seems to do pretty well. And again, Tennessee just can't get that Georgia Bulldog off their back. Thought 4 on week 3 in college football. What an absolute entertaining game we had up in South Bend, Indiana, folks. That's right. We saw Texas A&M outlast Notre Dame 41-40, literally on the last play of the game to win this thing. And man, this thing was back and forth all day. Both teams were making plays, just building up the score. Notre Dame ends up taking the lead at 41-35 late in the game. They go to attempt the extra point. Of course, you've all seen it. That was a botched hold. They had to try to get the 2-point conversion. They didn't get it. They ended up only getting 41-35. The funny thing about this whole thing was, you had this whole game of greatness up until this point. You got that one mistake by Notre Dame, and then you have the kicking game, kick off the next series, and Texas A&M runs the kickoff back for a touchdown. And you're like, holy smokes, what a game. And then it's called back on a holding penalty, which, quite frankly, at the end of the day here, I think if Notre Dame had it to do over again, I think they would have rather given up that touchdown, because the truth of the matter, folks, in this game, it really seemed like whoever had the ball last with any time remaining on the clock, because Notre Dame did have the ball last, but they only had 13 seconds to work with and no timeouts. So they really didn't, or a timeout or so, they didn't really have any time to work with. They weren't really the team last with the ball. Texas A&M was, and they took advantage of it. And just an unbelievable pass and catch there to end the game, and Notre Dame walks off the field as a 41-40 loser. They're 0-2. Remember, this was my national championship pick going into the season. I thought Notre Dame had the team. I thought C.J. Carr was going to be good enough to win, and he was good enough to win. They just couldn't get that extra point down, and that's really what it kills them. So you really got to give it to Mike Elko at Texas A&M. This is a big win for them. They went on the road. They are primed and ready to jump into the SEC, which, quite frankly, we just don't know what we're getting in the SEC here. We thought South Carolina might be good. They weren't really that good. We thought, Vanderbilt might not be good. They just blew out South Carolina. Both those teams played a Virginia Tech team that Old Dominion just hammered down yesterday, in a massive win for Old Dominion. I really don't know. You got Alabama rolling back. Looks like they're coming back to life here in the third week of the season. You just don't know. Another team in the SEC, Missouri, who looks to be, with the transfer from Penn State, looks to be a world beater here all of a sudden. They haven't played much of anybody, but they will starting next week or in a couple weeks. This is just going to be a real interesting conference in the SEC. And is Texas A&M really a contender here? And I think with what we saw yesterday out of Texas A&M and what we saw out of teams like Tennessee and Georgia, yes, a high-scoring game, but Texas A&M just won a high-scoring game too. LSU's offense, which is lethargic at best yesterday, the Florida Gators, Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorn. Like, who is going to win this conference is the question. And the real answer could be Texas A&M. They just played really well on the road yesterday, so give it up to them. Great win for them. Terrible loss for Notre Dame here, starting out 0-2, just terrible. They don't really have a ranked team left on their schedule to beat, although I do think by the time they play USC will probably be ranked. But anyways, just not the start Marcus Freeman was hoping for, coming off of a national championship runner-up last year to start out the season 0-2 in the fashion. But at the end of the day, folks, if you're a Notre Dame fan, here's what you got to look forward to. You lost to Miami by 3 on the road. You lost to Texas A&M by 1 at home on a play that we all saw. This could have been a tie game going to overtime for sure. The bottom line is both of these teams, Miami and Texas A&M, quite frankly, look to be one of the top 5 teams in the country right now. So your 2 losses by a total of, I think, 4 points in those 2 games came to 2 of the very best teams in the country as it looks today. Week 3, 25% into the season. Where's it going to go from here? I don't know, but it does look like Notre Dame has the 2 best losses in the country, although they don't have any wins. So there you have it. Texas A&M outlast Notre Dame in just an instant classic, 41-40. Thought 5 on Week 3 in college football. Let's move up here to Columbus, Ohio, and let's talk a minute about the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Ohio Bobcats yesterday. And man, the Bobcats came to play, which you thought they would. If you are in Ohio, you know that the Bobcats are pesky, and their mascot likes to beat up Brutus, which I think Brutus might have got the comeback yesterday. We'll see when the film is released really out there. But we had Ohio State kind of struggling around yesterday with Ohio. This game was 16-9 halfway through the third quarter, folks, and it was questionable exactly how explosive Ohio State's offense was looking. Now, I do think we did find some explosiveness again in an upgrade in competition from last week to Grambling to this week in Ohio. Ohio did beat West Virginia, who just beat Pitt in overtime. Great win there for the Gold Rushers in West Virginia. But I will say this. I think we found that Bo Jackson is the explosive back in the backfield at Ohio State. A back-to-back 100-yard games here. Now, granted, Grambling and OU, but the bottom line here is that Bo Jackson, in my opinion, should be the guy who gets the most of the carries, and Donaldson is the workhorse slugger back that they have in there. Julian Sayans, overall, had a pretty decent game. He went 25 of 32. 347 yards, 3 TDs, but 2 interceptions. And I think this is a great game for Ryan Day to go into the bye week. Because remember, Ohio State's heading to Washington in 2 weeks. They got the bye week coming up, then they're heading to Washington. This is a scary game for me. In the back of my head, Washington is on the the second longest win streak in the country when it comes to home winning games. Georgia #1, which they're going to be defending on September 27th against an improved Alabama team, it looks like. And Ohio State's going to be going to Washington to play the Huskies in Husky Stadium on a winning streak. That's the second longest in the country. And Ryan Day needed some things to show Sayin where he made critical mistakes, and he did in the first half. He was on the wrong side of the field multiple times. You heard Ryan Day say it in the press conference and on the field. He just didn't have, 25 of 32, 347, 3 TDs, the 2 interceptions. He's got to fix that those mistakes there. You can't make those against top-tier Big Ten teams. But he had a lot of great film that Ryan Day can now sit down with them and say, listen, son, this is where we got to fix this, and this. So great game. Great job, Ohio Bobcats, keeping that thing close. You really scared us coming out in the second half and throwing up that quick touchdown to cut this thing to like 13-9. Yeah, Buckeye fans were sweating a little bit, let me tell you. Overall, Jeremiah Smith had a big game, Heisman Trophy kind of game. He went 9 catches, 153 yards. He had a touchdown. He had 1 rush, 17 yards with another touchdown. That's 2 touchdowns, 170 yards of total offense for Jeremiah Smith. Yes, against a MAC contender, but against a MAC contender that has solid secondary, let me tell you that. So Ohio State kind of bumbles around a little bit in the first half. They pick it up in the second half. I think they scored 24 straight to close out the game. They do win 37-9. They got a lot to work on. I think Bo Jackson is the main running back here, in my opinion, that we'll see moving forward. Donaldson and Peoples will get some work, but I really like Bo Jackson. Yeah, he might not be a home run hitter, but man, he's explosive. And with a name like Bo, you got to go. So let's get with Bo Jackson rushing for 109 yards and a blistering 12.1 yards a carry. Extra. Who's not doing some great things so far this year is obviously Arch Manning. I'm not exactly sure where we are here with Arch Manning, but yesterday, not a great performance. He was 11 for 25, 114 yards, a TD, an interception. He also ran for about 57 yards and 2 TDs. But his second quarter, I didn't see this game live, but I went back and watched a film on the second quarter. These were some terrible throws. I mean, it's real questionable if this guy can really win some real SEC games coming up that they have. Again, they're going to the Swamp. They're going to Georgia. They got to play Texas A&M. I mean, they got to play Oklahoma on the neutral site. Oklahoma looks great right now. Their defense is one of the best in the SEC, if not in the country. So it's real questionable here about Arch Manning. And I'm really starting to wonder if this is a generational talent, and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. So if I'm a Browns fan who was thinking that we were going to get Arch Manning next year in the draft with our 2 draft picks, no way, son. Not right now. There's nothing that Arch Manning's been showing us that makes him a first round, second round, second day, third day pick here coming out of what we're seeing in Austin. But Arch Manning really needs to step it up. I just don't think they're going to. I think this Texas team it's looking like what I thought Georgia was going to look like going into the season. I thought Georgia would be 9-4, and I thought Texas would be 11-1, 10-2. Depending on what happened at the Ohio State game. But this isn't looking like an 11-2 or a 10-2 or 11-1 team right now. This is looking like a 4-loss football team, considering it the schedule that they've got ahead of them. So that's where we're at here with Arch Manning, but another lackluster performance. By far, the fans were booing. It must be hard on the kid. He's got a lot to live up to, but man, you got to perform better than that if you're going to play in Austin and for the Texas Longhorns. Extra. Well, I've told you like 4 times today where I've been wrong. And I'm going to tell you here in the extra segment where I was brutally wrong on a team that last night proved me wrong, and that is the Stanford Cardinal. I thought the Stanford Cardinal and the UCLA Bruins could play for the California Suck Bowl because both teams were going to go defeated. And just 7 hours after making and releasing that video, someone in the Stanford Cardinal saw it, and they came out yesterday, and they played a hell of a football game, and I got to give them credit for it. I told you in my Week 0 video I'd never talk about Stanford again the rest of the season, and here I am lying. They won the game 30-20. Congratulations, Stanford. If you can get 2 wins, it'd be a miracle this year, but I'm going to give you the props here for last night's win over Boston College. I didn't see it coming. It was blindsiding. I stayed up to watch it because it was blindsiding me so much, and Minnesota Golden Gophers were just pissing me off so much playing Cal. Clapping up to Cal, too. Cal's 3-0. but Clemson's 1-3 or 1-2 in the ACC. Mark that one up for your brain to think about. Yes, the Cal Golden Bears are 3-0. Stanford is 1-2, and Clemson is 1-2. It's a wacky world we live in. I told you this is going to be 2007 relived again, and here we go. Congratulations, Stanford. Big win for you. Quick hitters. All right, we got to start our quick hitters off with a congratulations to Kirk Ferentz, the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten. Yes, he passed Woody Hayes yesterday and now is the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten. I think he has 206 wins now, so that's a congratulations for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and they really pissed me off yesterday too, because I told you in one of my first half hitters, I think it was that I had UMass in 20.5 points in the first half. UMass scored in the first half, even though they only mustered 28 yards. They got a score out of that, and somehow Iowa scored the most points they've ever scored in the first half since 2021 and took a 30-7 lead, which beat me at my 20.5 points by 2.5 points. And that was not a great thing for me because it blew up a parlay that I was kicking ass on. So congratulations, Kirk Ferentz. You proved me wrong. You could actually score in the first half, and you did it yesterday. All right. Ole Miss and Arkansas. Now, this is a game where I took Arkansas in the 6.5 in the first half, and then I got them for 6.5 in the game, and I won both those bets. It's a big win. Arkansas looked great yesterday. They just couldn't outlast Ole Miss at home. I want to clap it up there to Ole Miss pulling that game out, but I really liked what I saw in Arkansas. I thought this was going to be a dog team, but they actually looked pretty good yesterday. And then you got the Oklahoma defense. This defense is on fire down there in Oklahoma. And yes, granted, they were playing Temple, but I told you, Temple was a good football team. I actually thought Temple would keep this game close in the first quarter, and they did not. Oklahoma did not sleepwalk through this first half of this game. They came out firing. They took a lead, big lead. But this Oklahoma defense, man, this is one of the best defenses Oklahoma's ever had in the history through 3 games, through the history of their program. This is a tremendous, tremendous thing. John Mateer, again, my leading Heisman candidate from the beginning. I liked John Mateer because I like Oklahoma quarterbacks that do well, win the Heisman Trophy. And here we are. Temple can't keep up 42-3 against Oklahoma. They just couldn't play well in that American Conference, and they just didn't have the firepower to hang with Oklahoma. Another big thing I saw yesterday, which I really liked, was my man Eddie George. That's right, Eddie George, one of my favorite Ohio State football players, now at Bowling Green University as the head coach. He comes out and pulls a stunner. I think it was a stunner over Liberty yesterday. They turned around and beat Liberty 23-13 at home. That was a big win for Eddie George. Congratulations to the Falcons of Bowling Green. Another team that won yesterday, but you got to wonder, based on what we saw from them earlier in the season, that's Oregon. I mean, they were just dominating 69-3 there last week against Oklahoma State. They do travel to Northwestern. Sleepy Northwestern, their stadium is under renovation, so they're playing in, I think they played that game in Wrigley or wherever, whatever. I didn't see that game, but Oregon 34-14 against Northwestern, kind of to be expected. Oregon can't win every game 69-3, so, but kind of and even when Ohio State goes to Northwestern, whether it's in Wrigley or their old field or the new field, maybe may be different, but it just doesn't create a great environment. It's hard to get up for it. Oregon showed a little bit yesterday. Still a dominant performance. They won by 20, but nothing like they should have. Speaking of dominant performances, how about the Miami Hurricanes? I mean, they just wiped USF off the map. This was a game that was hammered by rain, multiple delays. Miami, I kept thinking that Miami would, these delays would hurt them and let USF back in this game a little bit. But the bottom line is Miami looks like a real contender here. Carson Beck is playing great football, and Miami has enough talent. They beat Notre Dame already. Now they beat USF, which was a top top 25 team. Next, they play Florida, who just lost to LSU in an ugly game. So if Miami can come out here and just dominate the Gators next week, this could be a team that could jump up to number 1, number 2 team in the country. And like I told you earlier, I think Alabama is building back. I think people that wrote them off after the first week are going to be, second guessing their opinions on that. I think Ty Simpson he's playing very efficient football. He got Ryan Williams back into the mix yesterday. Alabama is definitely trending back up. So overall, we had one heck of a week 3 here in the college football season. I really enjoyed it. We look for more exciting stuff, especially over the next few weeks. We've got 3 weeks of this is going to be some real game changers, especially in 2 weeks on September 27th. We're going to learn a lot about a lot of teams come that point. We got Oregon going to Penn State. We got the Alabama, Georgia. We got Ohio State, Washington. We've got so much. I think we got Texas and Florida that week. We'll find out if Arch Manning can go on the road in a hostile environment. We got a lot of stuff going on, but it is real questionable so far through 3 weeks of the season who really is good. I mean, I'm really sitting back wondering who are the good teams here in college football. And that is a great thing, I think, for the sport. I think it brings more eyeballs to it, more teams in the mix. So it's real exciting. We got week 4. Hard to believe we're going to the second quarter of the football season, week 4 next week. And we're going to see some great games. And we'll get onto that in our weekly predictor show later in the week. We'll drop our Baker's Dozen on Tuesday. It's going to be real challenging to figure out who the top 13 teams in the country are as we speak right now. I think I have a good idea who the top 5 are. From there, it's real questionable. We're going to see some new faces in, obviously, because some of the old faces lost. And I think, we're just in tune for a great finish of September, an unbelievable October, and we're going to roll into November, and maybe by then we'll have some answers, but I really doubt it. I think this season's just going to be one of these crazy seasons where until the very end, we're really not going to know who really is the dominant football team in this season. Well, anyways, thanks for joining us. And remember, gather round in ALTT. We'll see you on Tuesday for the Baker's Dozen show and Thursday for the Weekly Predictor show. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, like, share with your friends. We love you here at Todd Talks College Football, and we'll see you soon.